She packed Millionaire lunch every morning until the pregnant wife discovered who was really eating it. In the hush of early morning, Clara Farnsworth stood in her spacious, sunlit kitchen, carefully sealing a gourmet sandwich into her husband Robert's lunch bag. She was 5 months pregnant, hoping to bring a sense of warmth and normalcy into their chaotic, high society life. Little did Clara know that the simple, kind act of preparing lunch would become the key that unlocked a series of dark secrets she never saw coming. Everything about her marriage seemed perfect on the surface until the day she found out exactly who was devouring those lunches. And once the truth emerged, it threatened to upend every comfort Clara thought she could trust. Clara Farnsworth was no stranger to the squeak of polished floors beneath her slippers. Each dawn at the Farnsworth estate was punctuated by the aroma of fresh coffee, the gentle hum of the air conditioner, and the quiet beep of the security system resetting for the day. While Robert Farnsworth's life was a flurry of business deals, 5-star dinners, and society events, Clara found solace in the domestic rhythms of home. Preparing breakfast was her favorite ritual, whisking eggs with cream, chopping fresh herbs, and listening to the soft, classical melodies wafting through hidden speakers in the kitchen walls. Pregnancy had changed Clara's body, but her spirit remained unwavering. Growing up in a modest family in upstate New York, she was taught that small gestures spoke volumes. Robert had teased her about waking up so early, especially when his private chef René, hired at a 6-figure salary, was fully capable of preparing meals. Yet Clara insisted. She found peace in the act of cooking for her husband, wanting him to feel cared for through the small, loving touches of homemade food. Each sandwich was neatly wrapped, accompanied by a sweet note that only read, "With love, Clara." These mornings were usually a time for them to connect, however briefly, before Robert left for his corporate empire's headquarters in downtown Manhattan. On most days, he would hurry by, pressing a quick kiss to Clara's temple. She'd hold out the brown paper bag with the Farnsworth family crest embossed on it, a small nod to their status, and watch him stride away in an expensive tailored suit. He always flashed a grateful smile. Then, with a whisper of cologne lingering in the air, he was gone. But as the weeks passed, Clara started noticing small curiosities about that lunch bag. The first was how pristine it remained when he returned. She had expected at least a bit of crumb residue or a rumple in the paper after a full day's use. Another day, she found a business card from Donovan and Klein Real Estate. Inside it, a peculiar place for Robert to keep random cards. Still, she never probed too deeply, chalking it up to a quirk of business. She had no idea that soon those barely noticeable oddities would tumble her into a world of lies and betrayal she never suspected. Clara's pregnancy hormones might have heightened her senses, or perhaps it was just a wife's natural intuition. Something felt off in the Farnsworth household, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Robert had grown more preoccupied, tapping away on his phone during dinner. He'd never been a carefree spirit. He was, after all, a millionaire CEO with numerous responsibilities, but his detachment went beyond mere stress. Clara's close friend, Tracy Donovan, a real estate broker from Glendale who had once helped them find a summer home in the Hamptons, visited the estate one afternoon. Over tea in the lavish parlor, with sunlight dancing over the gold leaf wallpaper, Tracy asked politely how Robert was doing. Clara sighed, explaining that he'd been distant, locked in calls, frequently late, and increasingly elusive about his schedule. Tracy clicked her tongue sympathetically, but her eyes glinted with concern. "Is everything all right with his new deals?" Tracy asked, flipping a strand of her silky blonde hair behind one ear. "I've heard rumors that Farnsworth Enterprises is pushing through a major construction project in Brooklyn. Could it be more stressful than usual?" Clara shrugged. "I'm not sure. He doesn't tell me much anymore." She paused, then added, "I feel Silly saying this, but it's the lunches that bother me. I make them every day. He says he appreciates them, but it's like, I don't think he's actually eating them. Tracy sipped her tea, her face tense. He might be handing them off to an employee or something. You know, big businessmen sometimes delegate even the strangest tasks. Clara let out a half-hearted laugh, pushing her worries aside for the moment. The conversation eventually drifted to baby names and nursery plans. Still, the quiet anxiety that had been brewing in Clara's mind refused to settle. She found herself replaying small details: the neatly folded lunch bag, the faint scent of exotic perfume on Robert's jacket, which she initially thought might be from the glamorous circles in which he moved, and his unusual reluctance to let her accompany him to corporate dinners she once attended without question. One late evening, Clara padded toward the kitchen for a glass of water. Their bedroom felt too stuffy, and her back ached from carrying the baby weight. The corridor lights glowed dimly against the navy blue walls, lined with portraits of Farnsworth ancestors. Robert's study door was slightly ajar, a sliver of orange light spilling into the hallway. She heard his low, urgent tone on the phone. She was never one to eavesdrop, but something about his voice sent a cold shiver through her. As she stepped nearer, she caught fragments of a conversation. "Just can't keep doing this. I can't risk it. No, I'll sort it out." She's starting to suspect. Clara's heartbeat thundered in her chest. She froze, pressing herself against the wall, careful not to make a sound. The next thing she heard was a different voice, a woman's voice crackling through the speaker in an agitated whisper. Clara couldn't make out the words, but the tone conveyed frustration, a demand for reassurance. Robert's breath hissed. "I promise. I'll handle the lunches. Just keep calm." That cryptic sentence hammered at Clara's mind. Fear, anger, and disbelief swirled inside her. Was Robert cheating on her with someone? And what did lunches have to do with it? Her first impulse was to burst into the study and confront him, but her nerves and a flicker of rationality held her back. If there was something to discover, she'd need evidence. Clara decided to stay hidden that night, pressing her ear closer to the gap in the door, listening until all she heard was Robert's tight-lipped good night and the soft click indicating the call had ended. She hurried back to the bedroom, heart pounding. When Robert came up minutes later, his brow was furrowed. He offered a tight smile, said he had a headache, and turned off the lamp. Clara lay awake in the darkness, the edges of the truth starting to form a monstrous shape in her imagination. Clara's suspicions refused to be silenced. She decided to do something she'd never done before in their marriage: search Robert's private things. The following morning, after Robert left for the office, she settled at the wide mahogany desk in his study. The shutters were half drawn, letting in strips of daylight. Her stomach churned with guilt, but her determination outshone her reservations. First, she checked the top drawers, carefully lifting expense reports and business proposals. She found a handful of notes scribbled with phone numbers, but nothing incriminating. Then she opened the slim middle drawer and froze. Her gaze fell upon a small black notebook labeled Employee Schedules. She'd never known Robert to keep track of staff rosters in any personal capacity. Leafing through its pages, she discovered the names of Farnsworth Enterprises employees, accompanied by cryptic notes, times, checkmarks, and random codes. One entry caught her eye: Genevieve Crispin, 12:15 p.m. lunch. That single notation made the hairs on Clara's arms stand up. Why was Robert so specifically tracking lunches for an employee named Genevieve Crispin? Before she could investigate further, she heard a noise: footsteps approaching the study. In a panic, Clara snapped the notebook shut, placed it back in the drawer, and whirled around to see Elizabeth McNeil, Robert's mother, standing in the doorway. Elizabeth's expression was stoic, her eyes scanning Clara with the silent, regal disapproval she had always worn like a tiara. "What are you doing here, Clara?" Elizabeth asked, her tone carefully measured. Clara's cheeks burned. Just looking for some of Robert's old business cards, she lied. I wanted to call a friend of his about the baby shower. Elizabeth tilted her head skeptically. Though the older woman said nothing more, Clara could feel her mother-in-law's pointed gaze, as if Elizabeth sensed the tension in the room. Eventually, Elizabeth pursed her lips and turned away, leaving Clara's heart hammering with both relief and dread. Clara wasn't about to stop her quest. Early in her marriage, she'd accompanied Robert to a few corporate functions, but she had never heard the name Genevieve Crispin. It was time to find out who this woman was and why Robert was so intent on having lunch with her, or providing her with lunches. Clara wasn't certain which. She decided to conduct a discreet search online. She opened her laptop in the comfort of her private sitting room, the baby quietly nudging her ribs as if sensing her anxiety. Through Farnsworth Enterprises' official website, she found no mention of a Genevieve Crispin. Then she combed through staff directories and press releases from Farnsworth corporate events. Nothing. It was as if Genevieve Crispin was a ghost in the system. Desperate, Clara typed the name into a general search engine coupled with Farnsworth Enterprises. The result came up in an old local newspaper snippet from 3 years ago. The article briefly mentioned a philanthropic event in Boston, attended by a Genevieve Crispin, philanthropic consultant, and Farnsworth Enterprises. But the piece offered no further details. No pictures, no additional records. That night, Clara lay awake, restless, her pregnant belly making it hard to find a comfortable position. Who was Genevieve Crispin? Why was Robert having urgent phone calls late at night, discussing lunches and hush-hush matters with someone she suspected was this mysterious woman? A roiling tension took root in Clara's chest as she debated her next move. She could confront Robert, but if he lied, she'd be back to square one. Instead, she decided a more active form of discovery was needed. A plan began to hatch in her mind. Clara's idea was simple but bold. She would follow Robert to work under the pretense of joining him for a routine checkup with their obstetrician near his office. He usually left home around 8 a.m. She'd give him a head start, then leave the house, tailing him discreetly. She wasn't exactly a professional sleuth, and her heavily pregnant figure didn't help. Nonetheless, she was resolute. That morning she rose earlier than usual, packing Robert's lunch as always: a roast beef sandwich, fresh strawberries, and homemade sweet tea. The subtle tension in her voice was easily masked by her feigned fatigue. Robert, distracted, offered a quick kiss, then hurried into the waiting black SUV that whisked him away. Clara waited exactly 15 minutes before calling a driver from the Farnsworth motor pool, requesting a car for her doctor's appointment. She instructed the driver, a polite young man named Henry, to keep a healthy distance from Robert's SUV. The city streets bustled as usual, but Clara's nerves were on high alert. Each turn the SUV took, Henry carefully followed, always at least 2 cars behind. Finally, Robert's vehicle pulled up to the gleaming Farnsworth Tower. The tinted window slid up, and Robert emerged, promptly entering the building. Clara didn't stop at Farnsworth Tower, though. After a few minutes, her driver nudged her attention to a second black SUV that seemed to have been waiting around the corner. Henry expertly pointed out that Robert's usual driver never lingered like that. They watched, hearts pounding, as a slender woman with chestnut brown hair stepped out of the building's side entrance, carrying the very same brown paper bag Clara had packed that morning. The woman slid into the second SUV and sped away. Clara's chest constricted, anger and confusion warring within her. The woman with her homemade lunch was not Robert. She told Henry to follow that second SUV. They wove through downtown streets, skirting traffic until the vehicle stopped in front of a luxury condominium complex in Midtown. The woman hurried inside with the lunch bag clutched protectively in her arms. A jolt of adrenaline coursed through Clara. She needed a name, a face, to confirm her worst fears. But the doorman of that building was quick to close the door behind the woman, leaving Clara in the back seat of her car, staring at the sealed entrance. So near, yet so far from the truth. Clara's next move was to recruit someone with the skills she lacked. She reached out to her old friend, a private investigator named David Hendricks, whom she had met through mutual acquaintances years ago. She hadn't seen him in ages, but she remembered he specialized in discreet, under-the-radar surveillance. David arrived at the Farnsworth estate one afternoon, dressed casually, his dark hair slightly graying at the temples. He greeted Clara warmly, but the gravity in his voice showed he understood the delicate nature of the request. Over cups of chamomile tea, Clara divulged every shred of information: the phone conversation, the lunches, the second SUV, the unidentified woman entering the Midtown condo. David nodded along, taking notes in a small leather-bound notebook. "I'll need to verify her identity. If I can get a picture, I can do some cross-referencing with corporate databases, property records, you name it. You sure you want to go down this route, Clara? There's no turning back from the truths we might uncover." Clara's lips trembled. The baby shifted inside her, as if echoing her turmoil. "I have to know the truth before my child is born. I have to protect our future, no matter how painful it might be." Over the next few days, David followed the same routine Clara had discovered. Each morning, Robert left Farnsworth Tower empty-handed, but a woman emerged from a side entrance holding Clara's homemade lunch. Some days she stepped into the second SUV. Other days she hailed a taxi. Always she carried that telltale paper bag. And, crucially, David managed to snap several photos of her from different angles. She was strikingly beautiful, tall, lithe, with sharp cheekbones and a polished, confident demeanor. One evening, David texted Clara. Her name is indeed Genevieve Crispin, former philanthropic consultant for Farnsworth. Found suspicious property records. Need to meet ASAP. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she replied, "Yes, tomorrow morning." In a discreet corner of the Farnsworth estate gardens, shrouded by tall hedges where no staff members would casually wander, David presented his findings to Clara. He opened a sleek tablet, revealing pictures of Genevieve Crispin stepping out of Farnsworth Tower, clutching the lunches with visible possessiveness. She's officially listed as a consultant for Farnsworth Enterprises, but no recent corporate documents mention her. David began, scrolling through digital files. She once worked closely with Robert on big charity projects. Then her name vanished from the official staff roster about 6 months ago. Clara's face paled. 6 months. Around the time I became pregnant, did Robert fire her? David shook his head. No one knows. But she's living in a high-end condo in Midtown, under a corporate lease paid for by Farnsworth Enterprises. He clicked another link, showing the condo details. Monthly rent is $14,000, all billed to one of Farnsworth's subsidiary accounts. A spike of betrayal sliced through Clara. Robert was secretly housing this woman. For what purpose? She breathed in deeply, trying to steady herself. And the lunches? Why would she be getting the lunches I make for Robert? David exhaled slowly. That, I don't know. All I can say is it's consistent. Every day. She picks it up or someone hands it to her. I suspect Robert has his driver pass it along. No direct contact between them in public, which is suspicious on its own. Clara's mind reeled. Was Genevieve blackmailing Robert? Or was there a deeper emotional entanglement? Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she fought them back. She wasn't ready to collapse into heartbreak, not yet. Her unborn child deserved her strength. That evening, Clara was too distraught to keep her expression neutral. Elizabeth McNeil, her imposing mother-in-law, noticed. After dinner, Elizabeth cornered Clara in the library. Dressed in an immaculate navy suit, the older woman fixed Clara with a piercing look. "You've been tense all day. Is something wrong with the pregnancy?" Clara shook her head, forcing a calm expression. The baby's fine, Elizabeth. I'm just dealing with a lot on my mind. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. Clara, I might not be the most open-hearted woman, but I can see when you're troubled. If Robert's doing something to upset you, Clara cut her off with an incredulous laugh. Elizabeth, you've always been your son's biggest defender. Let's not pretend otherwise. She tried to move past her, but Elizabeth's next words halted her in her tracks. I know about Genevieve Crispin, Elizabeth said quietly. Clara froze, her pulse galloping. Slowly, she turned around. Elizabeth's expression was one of cold resignation. Don't look so surprised, the older woman continued. This family has many secrets, and I'm not proud of them. But I have eyes and ears everywhere. Her heart thudding, Clara asked, Then tell me who she is and why Robert is paying for her condo. Elizabeth exhaled, glancing away. She was once the champion of our philanthropic department. Young, brilliant, a fresh face who charmed donors. Robert trusted her completely. Too much, in my opinion. Then something happened. He never told me the details, only that she needed to be kept out of the public eye. There were rumors of an affair. But Clara, her gaze softened. I don't know if it's that straightforward. Robert and I have a complicated relationship, but I do know he's not heartless. Perhaps he's protecting you from something. A rush of bitter irony filled Clara. Protecting her? From what? She whispered. Elizabeth, if you know anything that can help me, please, just tell me. But Elizabeth's lips pressed into a thin line. The conversation was over. She gave Clara a final, pensive look before striding out of the library, her heels tapping an authoritative staccato on the polished floor. Armed with David's photos and Elizabeth's cryptic warnings, Clara decided it was time to corner Robert. Her husband had been tiptoeing around her questions for too long. That night, she waited in the bedroom suite, her heart pounding while he finished a phone call in the hallway. The moment he entered, she demanded, Who is Genevieve Crispin? Robert halted, his tie half undone, eyes wide. Why do you? Clara raised her hand, silencing him. I know you're sending her my lunches every single day. I know she lives in a Farnsworth leased condo in Midtown. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Robert's posture slumped, as though a heavy weight had just settled on his shoulders. He glanced toward the closed door, perhaps checking if anyone was around to overhear. Clara, it's complicated. She laughed bitterly. No, it's simple. Either you explain, or I walk out of this house, pregnant or not. He sank onto the edge of the bed, burying his head in his hands. We were involved, Genevieve and me, before I met you, he confessed in a ragged voice. It didn't end well. She had a meltdown at one of our charity events, threatened to file a lawsuit, accused me of all sorts of improprieties. It was going to destroy Farnsworth Enterprises' reputation. My mother and the board decided to settle quietly. We bought her silence, gave her a consultant title, the condo. We tried to move on. Clara's pulse throbbed at her temples. Then why send her my lunches? Why the secrecy? Robert looked up, anguish tightening his features. She showed up again about 4 months ago, demanding more money. She threatened to go public with an even worse story. I couldn't let that overshadow the upcoming merger or stress you out during the pregnancy. She insisted on these lunches, some twisted form of leverage. She said if I didn't comply with her quests, she'd sell her story to a scandal-hungry media. Clara, I'm sorry. Clara listened, her emotions tearing her apart. On one hand, the story Robert told sounded plausible. Genevieve blackmailing him for money, exploiting Farnsworth Enterprises. But on the other, she sensed there was more he wasn't saying. What exactly does she threaten to reveal? She asked, her voice trembling. Robert hesitated for a long, suffocating moment. That I fathered a child with her, he murmured, eyes fixed on the floor. She claimed she was pregnant years ago, said I abandoned her. I never believed her. It didn't add up. There was no proof. But the rumor alone could ruin me. It would tarnish the Farnsworth name and everything we've built. And now that you're pregnant, it could cause unimaginable stress on you, on our marriage." Stunned, Clara sank onto the plush armchair across from him. Her thoughts whirled. If this was true, had Robert been deceived by a cunning woman, or was there a deeper, more complicated love story behind the scenes? "Robert," she whispered, "I can handle the truth better than I can handle lies." He nodded, tears rimming his eyes, but he said nothing more. That night they slept in tense silence, side by side but a million miles apart. Every rustle of the covers felt like an echo of heartbreak, and Clara's unborn child kicked with anxious energy. The next day, Clara updated David on Robert's explanation. The private investigator's lips formed a tight line as he listened. "It could be blackmail," David admitted, "but something about this doesn't sit right with me. I've seen my fair share of corporate hush money cases. Usually, there's a contract, a formal settlement. The day-to-day lunch routine is bizarre. Could there be more to it?" Clara asked, wringing her hands nervously. Could Robert actually have fathered a child with her? David shrugged. Possibly, or she could be lying. Either way, you deserve clarity. I'll dig further. Clara thanked him, grateful for his support. Each moment she spent questioning Robert chipped away at her love for him. She knew she had to stay strong, if not for her own sake, then for the baby's future. Yet, there was a nagging doubt within her. Could it be that she'd married a man capable of such deep duplicity? Or was Robert simply trapped in the clutches of a manipulative ex-lover? Armed with David's confirmation of Genevieve's daily routine, Clara decided to confront the woman herself. One afternoon, she mustered the courage to visit the luxury condo in Midtown. She approached the doorman, who recognized the Farnsworth name immediately, and after a few phone calls, allowed her to wait in the lobby. The polished marble floors and modern art installations gave the space a cold, impersonal feel. Before long, Genevieve stepped off a private elevator, wearing a sleek black dress and sunglasses perched on her head. She froze at the sight of Clara. A flicker of emotion, surprise, or maybe annoyance passed across her face. Then she stepped forward with controlled elegance. "Miss S. Farnsworth," Genevieve said smoothly, "this is unexpected." Clara's heart thundered. "I have questions, and I think you know exactly what they are." Genevieve's lips curved into a small, tight smile. "I'm not sure what you think you know, but I'll humor you. Please, come upstairs." Without waiting for a reply, she pivoted and walked toward the elevator, expecting Clara to follow. Inside the condo, the decor was lavish but impersonal, a showpiece of modern luxury with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Clara saw a brown paper bag with Farnsworth crest sitting on the granite countertop, its contents half-eaten. Her stomach twisted. "How long are we going to do this charade?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "You've been taking the lunches I packed for my husband. Why?" Genevieve shrugged, draping her designer jacket across a velvet armchair. "He owes me." "I asked for a personal arrangement, and he agreed." "But why lunches? If you're blackmailing him, why not just demand money or property?" "Oh, I demand those things as well." Genevieve smirked. "But the lunches are symbolic, dear. For years, Robert fed me promises and then left me starved. I am just making sure he never forgets what he did." Clara's voice cracked. "Did he father your child?" Genevieve's eyes flickered with an inscrutable emotion. "That's between Robert and me." Genevieve led Clara onto a glass-walled balcony. The city's skyline glittered in the afternoon sun, but it felt like an empty backdrop to the tension unfolding. Clara's hands rested protectively over her belly. She demanded, "I'm tired of secrets. If you truly have a child by Robert, I deserve to know." Genevieve sighed, leaning against the railing. "There was a pregnancy once. I lost it. The Farnsworth legal team never believed me. They thought I was lying to extort money. Robert insisted it wasn't his. In truth, I never got the chance to prove it because we had no real relationship by then, just a fling that ended abruptly. So, yes, I used it against him. At first, for revenge, and later because I needed money. The Farnsworth name has deep pockets, and I wanted my share. Clara's breath trembled. So this is about money and vengeance? Genevieve's gaze hardened. You don't understand what it's like to be cast aside, treated like a disposable asset. That man took my ideas, my connections, and left me with nothing but a shattered reputation. I nearly lost everything. And now you're punishing him, Clara said softly, dragging me into your feud. Genevieve's eyes flicked to Clara's baby bump. A flash of what looked like genuine sorrow crossed her face. I never wanted to hurt you, Clara, but he lied to you too. You think you know him, but you only see what he wants you to see. Robert Farnsworth does what benefits Robert Farnsworth. Don't forget that. The wind whipped Clara's hair around her face. She swallowed hard, uncertain how much of Genevieve's story to believe. One thing was clear, Robert had hidden a massive chapter of his life from her. Whether or not Genevieve was an opportunist, the betrayal still cut deep. When Clara returned home, exhausted and emotionally raw, she found a sealed envelope waiting for her on the kitchen island. Her name was written in Robert's handwriting. The house was silent, no sign of Robert or even the staff. Inside the envelope lay a single sheet of paper. It read, Clara, I know you spoke to Genevieve. I'm not surprised. You deserve an explanation. I've hurt you in ways I can't undo, and for that, I'm sorry. I'd like to propose a truce, an honest conversation. Meet me at our summer home in the Hamptons tomorrow morning. I've already arranged everything. We can talk there, away from prying eyes and ears. Robert Clara's pulse quickened with a mix of fear, anger, and curiosity. The summer home was a quiet retreat with minimal staff. Perhaps it would give her and Robert a final chance to hash out the truth. Yet a dark knot of dread tightened in her chest. She was stepping into unknown territory, alone, burdened by secrets and her unborn child's well-being. Still, she resolved to go. There was no turning back. She wanted closure, or at least the chance to decide her future with a clear head. Dawn broke, and Clara set off. The estate felt eerily quiet as she left. Rain threatened the sky, casting the morning light in hues of grey. During the 2-hour drive, she gripped the steering wheel, her thoughts spinning. What more could Robert reveal that would possibly change the situation? The baby fluttered in her womb, a soft reminder of everything at stake. She arrived at the Hamptons property, a sprawling beachfront home with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. The driveway was empty, except for Robert's sleek sports car. She felt her heart quicken. Inside, the house was silent, save for the distant roar of waves. "Robert?" she called out, stepping into the expansive living area. Her voice echoed. No response. She found a note on the glass coffee table. "I'm on the beach. Meet me there." Outside, the wind was brisk. She saw him standing by the shoreline, hands in his pockets, suit pants rolled up to keep them out of the wet sand. The ocean wind tousled his dark hair. The sight of him, like that vulnerable, away from the corporate power halls, stirred old affection within her, but also a profound sadness. Clara approached slowly, the sand sinking beneath her flats. Robert turned to face her, and for a moment they simply studied each other. A stormy sky framed their tense reunion. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice strained. "I never wanted to drag you into all this." Clara folded her arms. "Then why did you lie? Why did you hide Genevieve and feed her those lunches I made with love for you?" He sighed, gaze drifting to the horizon. "I wanted to manage everything, to keep it controlled. I thought I could shield you, shield our baby from any scandal." Genevieve had a hold over me, and I was a fool to believe I could appease her by playing her game. Clara's eyes stung with tears. So she was never actually pregnant with your child? Robert bit his lip. I still don't know. It's possible she was. We had a brief affair before I met you. She was brilliant. My mother even encouraged our partnership because Genevieve was an asset for philanthropic projects. Then she claimed she was pregnant and demanded I leave everything for her. I refused. We ended up with lawyers, hush money, non-disclosure agreements. I buried it, married you, moved on. The wind whipped at them, carrying the tang of salt. And now? Clara asked. Was it all blackmail? Are you still? He shook his head vehemently. No, I'm not in love with her. I never truly was. Maybe I was infatuated, but it died quickly. My mother said it would be best to keep her quiet at any cost. I followed that advice, but I never realized how twisted it would become. She's been demanding random things like your lunches, just to prove she still controls me. His eyes shone with regret. I never wanted to betray you, Clara. She stood there, the waves lapping at their feet, trying to discern if his apology was genuine or just another performance. For once, his vulnerability seemed real. Yet the pain he'd inflicted was undeniable. Clara inhaled deeply, the ocean air filling her lungs. Robert, if you want any chance of saving this marriage, you have to end everything with Genevieve. No more hush money, no more lunches, no more secrets. Expose whatever she's holding over you. I can't live under this cloud. Our child can't either. His jaw tightened. But if she goes public, Clara shook her head. Let her. I'd rather face a scandal head-on than live a lie. Tell the board. Tell your mother. Tell the press, if you have to. We will weather this together, or not at all. A flicker of admiration sparked in Robert's eyes. I don't deserve your loyalty. Clara's throat constricted. No, you don't. But this is about our baby now. I won't let you endanger our future because of your fear of bad PR. He nodded, tears finally falling down his cheeks. In that moment, Robert Farnsworth, wealthy mogul, fearsome CEO, looked almost childlike. He vowed, I promise, I'll do everything I can to put an end to this. Robert wasted no time. The next morning, he called an emergency meeting with the Farnsworth Enterprises Board of Directors in the executive suite on the tower's top floor. Clara, determined to stand by him, joined the meeting at his side, her pregnancy now obvious beneath a tailored dress. Elizabeth McNeil sat at the head of the table, her lips pressed thin as Robert outlined the situation. He confessed to the hush money arrangement, the condo, and Genevieve's manipulative demands. The directors murmured among themselves, scandalized. One of them, an older gentleman named Walter Street James, cleared his throat. Robert, the Farnsworth name has weathered storms before, but this, my God, man, blackmail, secret payouts. Elizabeth glared, her composure taut as a wire. Robert, do you realize what this could cost us? The merger with Donovan and Klein Real Estate is at a critical phase. If a scandal breaks, we could lose millions, not to mention the family's standing. Clara felt her anger flare. She refused to remain silent. Respectfully, Miss S. McNeil, perhaps transparency is the only way to salvage our name. Trying to hush it up has led us here. Elizabeth's cold gaze flickered to Clara's baby bump, then back to her eyes. You truly think the media will go easy on a pregnant wife? They'll spin this as your heartbreak. The Farnsworth men always get the worst press when it comes to hurting their spouses. It's a risk I'm willing to take, Robert interrupted, his voice firm. My wife and I agree no more secrets. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Eventually, Elizabeth stood, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her designer skirt. We'll set up a crisis management plan. If Miss Crispin attempts to leak anything, we'll respond swiftly. In the meantime, we'll freeze any further payments to her. Understood, Robert nodded, relief and fear mingling in his expression. The die was cast. As Robert and Clara had anticipated, Genevieve did not take the abrupt cut-off kindly. Within days, sensational headlines began cropping up on gossip sites. Millionaire CEO allegedly pays off former mistress. Secret condo, cancelled checks, and a furious woman scorned. Reporters hounded the Farnsworth Tower lobby. A handful of them even tried to scale the gates at the Farnsworth estate. Clara's phone buzzed non-stop, with calls from unknown numbers. She changed it within 24 hours. Robert's PR team churned out carefully worded statements denying wrongdoing and labeling Genevieve's claims as exaggerations from a disgruntled former associate. Genevieve, for her part, milked the attention, granting interviews, releasing carefully timed bits of evidence, photos of her and Robert together at past events, leaked bank statements showing Farnsworth payouts. But she had no definitive proof of a child, nor any legal document affirming a pregnancy from years prior. Still, the public spectacle was exhausting. Clara felt the stress weigh on her body and mind. She worried constantly about the baby, who, despite everything, seemed healthy. Each fluttering kick reminded her to stay strong. One night, Clara curled up on the nursery rocking chair, gazing at the half-painted walls. She heard the door creak and saw Robert enter, wearing a simple T-shirt and sweatpants stripped of his usual corporate armor. The harsh lines of stress etched his face. He knelt beside her, resting a tentative hand on her knee. "I can't apologize enough." Clara stared at the mural design she'd envisioned for the nursery, a serene sky, with hot air balloons and pastel clouds. It felt so pure, so removed from the chaos outside. Her voice was soft. "I want our child to be surrounded by truth and honesty. No illusions. Can you promise me that from now on?" Robert nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "I was so afraid of losing everything, but I see now that fear made me lose sight of what truly matters, you, our baby. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making this right." She searched his eyes, her own tears threatening to spill. A part of her wanted to cling to the love they once shared, to believe he could be the devoted husband and father she needed. Another part felt betrayed and wary, yet in this fragile moment she let him hold her hand, hoping that, in time, truth and loyalty could rebuild what Dissay it had torn down. Days later, Elizabeth McNeil summoned Clara to her private suite in the estate's west wing. The older woman stood by the window, her posture rigid as she gazed over the manicured gardens. When Clara entered, Elizabeth turned. "I've spoken to our lawyers. Genevieve Crispin has little concrete proof of paternity. It's a smear campaign, but the damage to Farnsworth Enterprises is real." Clara nodded, bracing for another lecture about the importance of preserving the family name. To her surprise, Elizabeth approached, gently took Clara's hands in hers. "Despite my misgivings about you, your background, your modest upbringing, you've handled this crisis with remarkable strength. You stood by Robert, forced him to be honest. I admire that." Her gaze dropped to Clara's belly. "You'll make a formidable mother." Clara swallowed her shock. This was the closest Elizabeth had ever come to an apology or compliment. It felt like a bridge being built in a desert. "Thank you," Clara managed to say. Elizabeth pursed her lips. "I'm not a warm woman, Clara, but I do love my family in my own way. If you need anything at all, for the baby, please ask." Their moment of truce was fragile, but genuine. Clara nodded, silently accepting the olive branch from the woman she'd once believed irredeemably aloof. As the negative press continued, Clara braced for Genevieve's final move. It came in the form of a shocking claim posted on social media. "Robert Farnsworth forced me to terminate a pregnancy to protect his empire," accompanied by a grainy, years-old ultrasound image. She alleged Farnsworth's lawyers manipulated her into a backroom deal. The claims went viral within hours. Clara confronted Robert. "Is there any truth? Did you force her into anything?" He looked horrified. "No, I didn't even know she'd had an ultrasound. She never brought me to any appointments. I was skeptical of her pregnancy from the start. Maybe she had one, but it wasn't mine. Or maybe this is fabricated. She's desperate." Despite the swirl of accusations, the Farnsworth legal team managed to highlight inconsistencies in Genevieve's story. Dates didn't match. The timing of the alleged procedures clashed with her documented travels. Slowly, the tide turned, public opinion shifting to see Genevieve as an unreliable, spiteful figure. Donations to Farnsworth's philanthropic branches dropped only slightly, and the real estate merger, though delayed, eventually progressed. Weeks turned into a haze of tension and waiting. Clara, approaching her due date, felt every day stretch on with a mixture of mounting fatigue and lingering apprehension. She tried to distract herself, designing the baby's nursery, updating her birth plan, and reading parenting books, but the nagging uncertainty about Genevieve Crispin refused to leave her in peace. Despite Farnsworth Enterprises' new crisis management plan, newspaper tabloids still ran sensational headlines, and social media boiled over with half-truths. Robert, weighed down by guilt, tried his best to shield Clara from the onslaught of news, but his own anxiety was evident in the late nights he spent in his home office, meeting with legal advisors via conference calls. He was exhausted, his eyes underscored by dark circles, his words clipped and careful. Elizabeth McNeil kept a constant watch on the situation, barking orders at the corporate PR team. Her stoic presence in the estate's halls felt oddly reassuring. For once, she and Clara shared the same goal, to contain the turmoil and bring an end to Genevieve's destructive campaign. About 3 weeks before Clara's due date, a sudden development rippled through the media. Genevieve Crispin issued a startling press release in which she declared she would no longer be pursuing any claims against Robert Farnsworth or Farnsworth Enterprises. She went so far as to apologize for misrepresenting certain facts, stating that the emotional toll of the public scandal had become too great. She also asked for privacy, explaining that she planned to leave the city indefinitely. When Clara caught wind of the statement, her phone buzzing incessantly with alerts, her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. At first, she suspected the Farnsworth legal team had offered Genevieve a new settlement. But Robert, stumbling into the living room with the same phone notifications lighting up his screen, swore to Clara that no money had changed hands this time. The entire Farnsworth board of directors seemed equally stunned. They had braced for a prolonged legal fight and had even prepared defamation countersuits if Genevieve continued her allegations. That woman must have run out of ammunition, Walter Street James, the older board member, muttered under his breath during a quick call with Robert and Elizabeth. "We had her on the defensive, with no real evidence to back her. It's likely her lawyers advised her to cut her losses." Clara, though relieved, couldn't help lingering on a swirl of unanswered questions. Why would Genevieve give up so abruptly? In a few short paragraphs, she had reversed weeks of incendiary claims. Was it a sudden change of heart, or did some outside influence convince her to retreat? Out of a mixture of trepidation and compassion, Clara found herself rereading Genevieve's statement, this time on a tablet while resting in bed. The apology was brief and perhaps not entirely sincere, but something in its tone hinted at genuine exhaustion. Genevieve mentioned the toll that prolonged conflict has on one's health, alluding, perhaps, to the heartbreak she had experienced long before this scandal. Clara shut off her device, her mind drifting back to their tense encounter at Genevieve's condo balcony. In that moment, Genevieve had shown flashes of regret, maybe even sorrow, for the damage she'd done. The Farnsworth PR team capitalized on Genevieve's sudden retreat, releasing a final statement that Farnsworth Enterprises was pleased the issue had been resolved amicably and that they wished Miss Crispin well in her future endeavors. With no further incendiary leaks from Genevieve, the media frenzy receded surprisingly quickly. Scandal-weary reporters moved on to other stories, and late-night talk shows dropped their Farnsworth gags from the monologues. Within days, it was as if the flames had been doused. Clara noticed fewer vans parked outside the estate gates, and the paparazzi stopped hounding her whenever she ventured out. Robert's phone, once lighting up with messages every minute, fell silent most evenings. The quiet was disconcerting, but also liberating. One rainy afternoon, as Clara was folding freshly laundered baby clothes, she looked up to see Robert leaning against the nursery doorframe. His usually confident posture sagged with a mixture of weariness and relief. She beckoned him in, and he took a seat beside her on the floor, running a hand gently over her round belly. "She's finally done," Clara said, her voice hushed. "Or so it seems." Robert let out a shaky breath. "I keep expecting another shoe to drop. Another press leak, another rumor. You did everything you could. We confronted the truth. We called her bluff. It's time to let it rest." He nodded, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes. "I'm so sorry for all of it. I wish I could erase the pain I caused you." Clara couldn't deny the betrayal still lingered, a faint bruise on her heart. Yet the nightmares of scandal had begun to fade, replaced by the faint flutter of hope each time she felt their baby move. She reached out, twining her fingers through Robert's. We move forward by building something better, day by day. They sat quietly for a long time, lulled by the sound of the rain against the windows. In the aftermath of Genevieve's abrupt concession, the Farnsworth name no longer dominated every headline. Corporate partners who had distanced themselves cautiously began to return calls. The final phases of the real estate merger proceeded without new hurdles. Slowly, the Farnsworth family settled back into a rhythm of routine, albeit with deeper lines of caution etched into their collective conscience. Whatever had caused Genevieve to retreat fear of legal consequences, moral guilt, or perhaps just pure exhaustion, Clara chose not to pursue it further. She was ready to focus on her child's imminent arrival, the next chapter of her marriage, and the hard-won lessons about honesty and loyalty. And with each passing day, the flames of scandal receded further into the past, overshadowed by the promise of new life. In the stillness of a late autumn evening, Clara felt her contractions begin. Robert rushed her to the hospital with shaking hands. After hours of labor, overshadowed by months of emotional turmoil, Clara finally brought their daughter Aurora Farnsworth into the world. Holding that tiny, wriggling bundle, Clara felt a swell of unconditional love that eclipsed every betrayal, every lie. Robert wept tears of pure joy, pressing soft kisses on the baby's forehead. For a moment, the chaos of scandal and heartbreak melted away, replaced by the sweet, simple truth of a new life. Even Elizabeth, stoic as ever, cradled her granddaughter with watery eyes. In that hospital room, the Farnsworth family formed a fragile, hopeful bond. Imperfect, riddled with scars from betrayal, but determined to do better. For Aurora, back at the estate, Clara found she couldn't go back to the old lunch-packing routine without a pang of bitterness. So she proposed a new tradition, Sunday brunches as a family one day a week, where she, Robert, and soon little Aurora would share a lovingly prepared meal together. No secrets, no lies. Robert, in a bid to restore Clara's faith in him, eagerly agreed. And while the Farnsworth name had been singed by scandal, it hadn't been consumed by it. Robert took a step back from some of his corporate responsibilities, focusing on fatherhood and rebuilding trust at home. Meanwhile, Clara dove into volunteer work, supporting women who faced manipulative relationships, an endeavor inspired by her own ordeal. They never heard from Genevieve Crispin again. Some whispered she left the country. Others speculated she took a job overseas. David Hendricks, with his thorough investigative skills, followed a few leads, but Genevieve had vanished almost without a trace. In a rare, quiet moment, Clara found herself pitying the woman who had been consumed by bitterness and revenge. As for Robert and Clara, their marriage was no longer the pristine, idyllic fairy tale it once appeared. Yet it was real, built on fresh honesty, mutual respect, and a baby girl who became their anchor in every storm. And if sometimes Clara still felt the lingering ache of betrayal, she found solace in her daughter's bright eyes and Robert's renewed devotion. Some scars heal slowly, but they do heal, one day at a time. Through heartbreak, scandal, and the unrelenting glare of public scrutiny, Clara and Robert Farnsworth discovered that real love is forged in truth, even when the truth hurts. Although betrayal nearly tore them apart, it also stripped away every illusion, forcing them to rebuild on a foundation of honesty. Their daughter, Aurora, became the guiding light, reminding them that second chances can bloom even in the darkest fields of despair. In this story, we witnessed how secrets can unravel the strongest bonds, and yet, with courage and resilience, a shattered marriage can find a new path forward. If you enjoyed this dramatic tale and want to see more gripping real-life fiction, please give this video a like, share it with friends who love a good story, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful narratives. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that spark hope, discussion, and inspiration.